Dear people of Reddit, what is your funniest slash stupid drunk stories? I once got so hammered at happy hour in college that I got lost walking home and ended up on some country road. It was dark out, thought it had to be 1 or 2 a.m. and I knocked on this random farmer's door asking for directions. He offered to give me a ride home and I threw a $20 bill on the seat. When I got out, got inside and realized it was like 8 p.m. We were having a party at our apartment. I'm notorious for falling asleep early and in random places. So, around 10:30 p.m., a party goer spots me under the kitchen table asleep, using my shoe as a pillow. The party goer gets my partner, and my partner pokes at me until I get up. She then walks me to the bedroom and tells me to get in my pajamas. She hands them to me and then leaves. I wind up standing there for at least 30 minutes with my pajamas in my hand, not knowing how to work them. I fumble around for my phone and text my partner. I need assistance. Please help. No typus. Hoo. She comes into the room a few minutes later and sees me in virtually the same exact position she left me in. Flabbergasted, she asks, "Why aren't you in pajamas yet? You abandoned me." She could barely stop laughing long enough to help dress me. I wanted to show off to the boys that I could climb a brick wall in a bikini, not to show off, just because we were swimming. Found out the hard way that people put broken glass on top of walls like that to deter bads and robbers. To be fair, I did successfully climb the wall, but I also got a staph infection. It was July 3rd, and I was playing True American with a large group of friends. I jumped on a couch and sliced my foot on a piece of metal framing, only I was so drunk that I just thought ouch and just kept playing. I was wearing wool socks, so I didn't see any damage. Later, when I got home I took my sock off and my foot was gushing blood. I wrapped my foot with practically an entire roll of toilet paper and decided to go to the doctor in the morning, since it was about 3 a.m. The only problem was that the next morning was the 4th of July, so all non-emergency rooms were closed. I called the medical officer for my work. I was at a summer stock theater, which is basically like summer camp for people working in theater, and the medical officer was kind of like a camp nurse, and he told he'd take a look at it, and that I could meet him at the 4th of July parade our town was holding as our company had a float, so most people would be there. When I got there, he was dressed in a 3-piece American flag suit with a Smirnoff Ice in each hand. He was not in any condition to take a look at my very much still bleeding foot. Some of my friends hoisted me onto my company's float, so instead of receiving medical care I was now in a parade. In hindsight I definitely should have just gone to the emergency room, but you live and you learn, I guess. I went to a non-emergency medical center the next day, where they said I should have gotten stitches, but it was too late, so now I have a large scar on my foot reminding me of my stupidity. A buddy of mine was super drunk. I went outside for a smoke, came back in to find him chowing down on dog food and said, "This is some tasty casserole." I didn't stop him. I was underaged and made up a birthday when a cop asked me how old I was. The age I gave him would have made me 7. I didn't know about this until I read it in my arrest report, so you already know how that went. Jesus, that night was a disaster. It took several more years and some more spectacular fuck-ups before I finally gave up the sauce. I was staying at a golf resort in Lake Geneva. For some reason we had the cab driver drop us off at the front entrance instead of at the villa. Instead of walking back to our rooms, we decided to venture to the illuminated fountain on the golf course off the main road. It was down this steep hill, so I just sort of fell to my side and slid down to the bottom. 2 of my friends separated from the group. They got back to the villa right after us. One of them was in nothing but his boxers and bleeding from the knee. Apparently he swam in the fountain at the entrance of the resort and cut his knee on one of the fountain spigots. The next morning when leaving the resort for Walmart, I looked over at the area with the hill and the fountain and my slide left a giant ugly gash in the side of the hill right off the green. Also, if I recall correctly, one of my friends kept calling this young Asian woman Tokyo Drift and I punched him in the chest for it. I went to a party and ended up reconnecting with an old friend from high school. This was a relatively small party, maybe not the right word, small get together perhaps, which had maybe 10 to 11 people. Everyone else had already fell asleep and needless to say, him and I were the only two awake. The only place left for us to sleep was the basement, and we'd have to share a sleeping bag. I'm a chick, he's a dude, but he was super respectful and a great old friend, so it wasn't weird. It was the dead middle of winter and there was no heat in the basement, so we plugged up a little heater next to us. I was pretty wasted and was also freezing my ass off. He's in the middle of telling a story and I'm eyeballing the fuck out of the heater. I think our brainwaves connected on some other drunken timeline, but he falls quiet for a solid 10 seconds. He's looking at me, I'm looking at the heater. He whispers, "Don't do that." And what do? I reach out and decide because I'm so cold, I'm going to put my bare hand on this burning hot heater. I made dead eye contact with him as I did it. I was so wasted, I didn't even feel pain at first, and kept my hand there for a solid 5 to 6 seconds, all the while looking this dude dead in his optic stems. I finally pull back and start freaking out while he's dying laughing at how big of a dumbass I was. I had to keep my hand wrapped for like a week after that, burned the whole palm side of my hand. My first week of college, a rugby teammate of mine was having his birthday. We all went out to a club to celebrate. This was maybe my second time drinking, and first time ever at a club. We paid for a VIP booth and everything. Apparently about halfway through the night, I sat down in the booth. Someone had taken their shirt off, and I used it as a pillow and fell asleep. In the middle of a club with the music blaring and everything. Not blacked out or anything, because I distinctly remember picking up this neon green shirt, and then sometime later I remember thinking, the majority of the people that were here are gone. I walked up to go to the bathroom and apparently one of the older guys was looking out for me, but missed me when I walked to the bathroom and panicked. I found him outside after my bathroom break, and we proceeded to leave. I threw up maybe 10 steps away from the exit of the club. He called his sister to pick us up and take me to my car because I needed to get my dorm key. His sister parked a little away from my car and I walked to it and got my key. I then walked back to where I thought they had parked and they weren't there. Walked around the parking lot, nothing. So I stumble a mile back to my dorm by myself at 2 in the morning after falling asleep in the club. Good times. I got plastered out in the woods with a couple of friends, and one of them had brought a flare gun which we shot into the fire, and had a good time. As the night went on we got more and more drunk, and when the whiskey bottle was finished we decided that it would be a good idea to let one of my friends shoot me with the flare gun. I took my shirt off and stood about 20 feet away covering my face. The shot went off, and I felt a sharp zap to my arm. Then I looked down and saw a hole about the size of a nickel in my arm. My first thought was, oh cool, I can see my muscles moving in there, and luckily my friends were think, holy shit, we gotta get this kid medical attention. So we walked to my friend's house, slapped a maxi pad on there, wrapped it up in tapan. Then we went and got more drinks. We drank jungle juice and played beer pong with tequila. Most of us spent the night. I woke up on the bathtub. I couldn't find my glasses. My digital camera, before cell phones had cameras, had photos of everyone wearing my glasses. Even my boyfriend wore them, and one was my glasses on his penis. Someone found my glasses in freezer. No one remembers anything. I'd love to know how it started. Back in high school my friend called me up at 3 AM on a Friday night while I was just chilling at home playing video games. He was coming back from a party and had forgotten his house key or something. He was mad drunk and not the easiest to understand, so I told him he was welcome to come over and sleep here. He shows up fucked out of his mind, flops on the couch, and passes out almost immediately. I'm like, W/E bro, I'm a gamer, and went back to getting scrubs on COD. About an hour goes by, and he eventually starts groaning, grunting, and flopping his limbs around. He wakes up, stands up, runs down the hall, and disappears into one of our storage rooms. This was in our basement, closing the door behind him. I had all these lights on for no goddamn reason, and just thought they were bothering him or something. Maybe the hangover hit him early? I don't know. I'm no doctor. But like, this dude is spending hella time in that room. 10 minutes go by, and I decide to check on him. I knock on the door, and I'm like, dude, you okay? No answer. I try again, no answer. I open the door, pitch black. I flick on the lights. My boy's urinating into one of those huge plastic bins you use for storage. Thank God it was so big, because he was filling it with piss, and it didn't look like he was stopping anytime soon. I'm like, you dude, this isn't a bathroom, and he's like, what? And continues pissing. I'm like, you dude, look at what you are doing right now. Stop and think about it. What are you doing? He finally stops pissing. He looks around. He sways back and forth and slowly begins to process what's going on. Fuck. That's all he says. I get him upstairs into a real bathroom and go back downstairs to evaluate the damage. Turns out the bin was full of my younger brother's arts and crafts that he made all throughout his childhood. All his kindergarten to grade 6 treasures floating in my friend's piss. I threw everything out. Still have never told my family. Me and my friend decided to pretend we were celebrating a TV series of ours had just been optioned. We had never even thought about it, but managed to convince this weird guy that we were writers and directors. We somehow managed to make him believe he was perfect to play the role of a psycho Russian soldier. He brought us drinks and gave us his number and genuinely believed us to the point he was performing scenes in the bar with a Russian accent. My particular favorite scene he portrayed was the one where he was carrying an AK-47 and shooting cows and shouting, "I will kill all your meat, you English pig dogs," in a poor Russian accent. Yes, the bar was packed, and no, I don't think he noticed. I don't drink often, but one night I got blasted. I had 3 shots of tequila and 2 Long Island iced teas, and I was gone. I didn't remember much, but when I woke up the next morning my mouth hurt, there was stale bread all around me, and my shoes were still on. My friend informed me that I did the following. 1. I loudly proclaimed that I could feel my teeth, and then called them outside bones for the rest of the night. I went to brush my teeth and apparently I was gone for a full 10-15 minutes. That whole time I was just brushing my teeth. I didn't know it had been so long. 2. My friend was giving me bread and water to sober up a little before I went to bed. His cat laid on my chest as I ate the bread, and I made bread hats for him. This was basically just bread with no crust, but it fit perfectly on the cat's head. I found this to be very funny. 3. My friend tried to get me to take my shoes off, but I told him I needed them to protect my feet from monsters. He asked me again about a half hour later, and I apparently just went SHHH and passed out. Also bonus, I did remember drinking water that night, and my friend said he was glad I drank so much. I said I didn't even finish my glass. What are you talking about? And he informed me that he had been taking my glass before it was empty and adding more water. I did not notice. I have wonderful friends. A couple of weeks ago I went to a weird party on a farm. I didn't quite like it, and drinking a lot of alcohol seemed to be the best way to make it more fun. It just became a little too much alcohol. I ended up at my home around 3 in the morning when I realized I forgot my keys. I did recall having a ladder in the garden. I tried going up the garage, but all the windows were closed. I realized my own bedroom window was still open, on the 3rd floor, with a pitched roof. So I decided it would be a great idea to climb up the ladder. I was just too shit-faced to set it up. I ended up standing for at least 5 to 10 minutes trying to get it up, and after almost smashing the windows 10 times, I finally gave up. Luckily my parents were home, and were so kind to let me in. TLDR, got drunk and tried to climb a ladder to the 3rd floor, then climb a bit on a pitched roof to enter my room. Finally decided it would be best to call my parents. Second time I ever drank, we were playing shot poker. Lose a hand, take a shot. Little did they know I'm a pretty decent poker player. They are like 12 shots deep and I've had 1 shot. So they made me catch up 12 shots in an hour and I'm magoted. I ended up talking to the ironing board at one point and trying to drink from an empty cup. On my honeymoon in the Caribbean, the new wife and I went out for the day snorkeling on a glass bottom boat. The cheap rum fruit drinks flowed freely. When we got back in, and I went to get out of the boat, I had no idea I was drunk, and fell flat on my face in the sand. New wife went to get out of the boat, didn't realize that she was drunk, and fell flat on her face on top of me. We then tripped and fell, and crawled our way to our room. We spent the rest of the evening holding each other's hair as we puked. Finally felt well enough to leave the room to go to dinner. Walked out the hotel, and there sat a big table with free fruity rum drinks. We both ran back in the room, puked, went to bed, and called it a night. I got incredibly trashed at a friend's bachelor party. I had made plans to walk from our final stop to a friend's house to finish out the evening. It was maybe 6 blocks, but I got lost for almost half an hour. At one point, I sent my friend my GPS coordinates in a text, even though he didn't have a smartphone. I climbed a fence to cross a creek and realized the fence ended a few yards a sidewalk. I climbed another fence and ended up in someone's backyard. I ended up at a condo that looked like my buddy's place to the T, except for the back gate. I called in a panic for the 6th time, and he said he'd come outside to find me. He called my name a moment later from right behind me. I was facing the wrong way. Here's one from my boyfriend. He and a few friends in high school went to a house party in the rich area of town. His buddy's girlfriend is the one who threw the party in her very expensive house. My boyfriend thought it would be a great idea to bring firecrackers. Everyone loved it. They were having a great time, drinks were free flowing, yada yada yada. As the night progressed, he came up with the great idea to throw the firecrackers into the toilet of the basement bathroom. Friend A kept telling him not to. Friend B told him that it was a fantastic idea. He chose the sage advice from friend B. The toilet explodes into pieces. No one got hurt, and the girl was incredibly pissed off and asked what the hell happened and who brought the fucking firecrackers. My boyfriend, to no avail, tried to say the toilet mysteriously combusted and it wasn't his doing, while he was literally the only one with firecrackers. The homeowners were incredibly easygoing and just told my boyfriend's father they only expect the cost of a replacement toilet. $800 later the toilet is replaced and is just as luxurious as it was before. That's right, it was an $800 toilet. My boyfriend's father was furious and still gets worked up about it to this day whenever it is mentioned. I was 19 and this cute girl that I liked invited me to her friend's house party. I brought a couple friends, and we were some of the first people there. Anyway, the girls start giving us jello shots, and it was the first time I'd had them. So naturally, I had way too many. Then all of a sudden, a shitload of people are there, and half of them are making out. The girl I liked runs up to me and says, "I really want to make out with someone," and I'm thinking, here's my chance. But my stomach had other ideas. My heart wanted to passionately embrace her, but my body decided to make an attempt to run outside. In that attempt, said body also decided to projectile vomit all over the door, while in mid-sprint and slip in it. I woke up with my pants unzipped, but I don't think I got laid. During my unit days me and a few buddies got absolutely trashed and decided it was a good idea to wander the streets. As we were walking, there was a house with a snowman in front. My friends dared me to spear the snowman, so without even thinking, I gave it my best Goldberg spear. It was -15°C. The snowman was an iceman and I broke my shoulder. When I was a teen we would party in my boyfriend's garage. Nothing extreme, just some beer pong. Someone suggested that I tried a bit of weed whilst I was already wasted. I walked outside and fell in a hole. It wasn't just a small hole that I happened to miss either, 6 feet deep. I'm only 5 feet 2, so I couldn't even get back out on my own. So people had to try and yank me up. The next day over half my leg was bruised and there was a giant lump right in the middle. I had honestly thought I broke it because the lump looked and felt like the bone was poking under the skin and it hurt to walk. Just a bone bruise though, so it ended up making a great drunk story. That was actually the last time I've drank alcohol as well. Learned my lesson. My birthday is in September, so the New Year's after I turned 21. So like 3 MOs after my birthday, I decided since I was now legal I was going to get rip-roaring, falling down drunk. My husband was like, "Well, alright if that's what you really want to do." The entire day, I didn't really eat much. I just sat around drinking wine coolers, so by the time we went to go hang out with Hub's buddy that evening, I had spent most of the day kinda buzzed. I'm a super lightweight when it comes to drinking. On the way over to his friends, we stopped and bought a bottle of wine and a bottle of champagne to drink at midnight. His friend had already bought 2 bottles of wine and a bottle of champagne as well. Hubs doesn't drink and wanted to be the DD, so his friend and I, over the course of the evening, worked our way through all 3 bottles of wine, and then we drank about half the bottle of champagne at midnight. I was so fucked up. I couldn't hardly walk, although this was somehow extremely funny to me as I stumbled out to the car. Once we started moving however, it became less funny as I started feeling nauseous. At one point, maybe 15 minutes into the drive home, it was about a 30-minute drive. Everything is at least 15 to 20 minutes away here, because Texas. Lol. I decided I couldn't hold it anymore, and rolled down the window. I tried to lean out the window, so I could throw up and not get it in the truck. I'm pretty sure I managed to projectile vomit all over, not just the highway, but a car next to us as well. Sorry, dude. A lot of it got inside the truck as well, since I wasn't leaning as far out of the window as I thought I was. When we got home, I threw up some more. I have no idea how I had anything left to throw up, but I did. The next day, first thing in the morning, even though I had the world's worst hangover, my husband made me go out and clean up the mess I'd made in his truck, which only made me want to puke more. In my dumber years, I got hammered enough at a friend's party that I kinda lost basic motor skills for a minute. I was carried down the stairs the first time I needed the bathroom because my friends were legitimately afraid I'd kill myself if they let me try by myself. Later on in the night I took a fall down the steps anyway, just a few, but that's enough. I found a Gumby costume somewhere, my friend had one, and wore it for Halloween that year, but I have no idea where/how I found the thing, put it on, and tried to run around the house in it, stumbling and running into a wall in the process. I danced theatrically to the never-ending story theme. I puked on myself, while sitting on the floor, and rambling on at length about Doctor Who to somebody. My very compassionate, but also very drunk friends tried to change me out of the puke-covered clothes. I wasn't helping them out much. I woke up on my friend's bedroom floor with no recollection of ever going to sleep, feeling like death, and covered in mystery bruises. I had to be informed of a lot of the bullshit I had done the night before. This was the first time a few of her friends had met me, and luckily they thought I was hilarious, and not a liability. Thankfully I never got quite that bad again. Close, but not like that. Was in a van going to a rafting spot in Costa Rica. Van stopped in middle of nowhere because of a sloth crossing the road. I got out and decided sloth needed motivation to move faster. Sloths don't move faster no matter what. Now I have urinated on a sloth for no reason. Probably the first night me and my female friend were in Germany. I recall we stumbled past a strip club when Lani announced her brilliant idea that she should strip to help pay for the trip. Instead of saving her from herself like a good friend, I announced that I'm her manager and entitled to 40%. We approached the doorman and start negotiating for a job. Mind you, she has never stripped, danced, or done anything even remotely close to this in her life. But at the time, it was the best idea ever. Thank God he turned us away. This one's funny. I got wasted at a local bar one night with a bunch of friends. Next morning I'm driving to school and get a text from a friend and has like a what? I'm thinking to myself, what the hell did I text him? I look and the previous night, when I was blacked out I texted him these 3 words. Drunk and vulnerable. Lol. So yeah, kinda weird for a guy to send that text to another friend of his. I've narrowed it down to 2 options. It was either the shittiest attempt at a booty call ever, and I texted the wrong person, or I was making a dark joke about how I like my women, drunk and vulnerable lol. It's just a joke, but yes, dark sense of humor over here. I once drank 4 bottles of vodka plus a Mickey and tequila on a school night in my room, cause I've never been truly drunk, and I wanted to see if I could handle being hungover at school. I called a bunch of my friends, even confessed my love to one of them, and texted this guy who was my boyfriend, ex, but was ghosting me, and I was demanding why he wasn't talking to me while on call with the person I confessed my love to. I started to projectile vomit all over my bed and then dropped my phone off my bed. I don't remember anything after that, probably cause I blacked out. I woke up in my vomit. There was vomit in my hair, all over my back and face. Then the worst headache and stomach pain started of my life. Debatable. There was no way I could make it to school as I was sobbing in pain. So I told my mom I had the flu. She believes me and lets me stay home. My dad gets home later and obviously he knows what happens because my whole bed smelled like alcohol and there was some of bottles missing from our cabinet. Plus I was extremely hungover. They right away thought I drank with my friends since they were over earlier in the day. and I just agree with that. Since it's easier than trying to explain getting drunk by yourself, I basically blamed it on my friends. Oops, I haven't really talked with them since. But then after I told my parents what really happened, and everything's fine now, mistake I made was not staying hydrated. Also, which sucks, is my parents think I'm an alcoholic, since I gave them all the empty bottles from that night, but they didn't believe it was from one night and assumed I have been drinking them for months. Truth is, I've never been drunk before that. Oh well. At least I have a pretty good alcohol tolerance now. After that night I never want to drink again. It was the worst day of my life, plus the shame from my family felt horrible. This is a stand-up story of mine, so if I'm ever famous you'll know my Reddit account. When I was 16, me and a few buddies from my neighborhood would go camping in the woods behind our neighborhood to drink. I'm changing their names, but the group was Robert, who was an MMA fighter and adrenaline junkie, David, who we thought might be gay and also did MMA, Dale, who is a massive redneck and is pretty overweight, and I. We spent a week cutting down trees. We were assholes, okay, and building a massive longhouse to throw the ultimate party in. So we get out there with 3 bottles of Burnett's and a box of Budweiser and start drink. Once the sun goes down, about a bottle in, Robert calls from outside the longhouse saying he's got some we needed to see. So we go out of the longhouse, and he had climbed about halfway up a tree that was about 30 or so feet tall. Now, this tree was really thin, tall, and straight, and so he goes, guys, how far do you think I can swing this? Now I'm not drunk enough to not understand that what he is not safe, so I start to look for David, as he is the only one who is physically capable of subduing Robert. Thing is, he's nowhere to be found. So I yell to Robert to stay there, and I get Dale to come with me to look for David in the dark woods. We couldn't find him, so we split up, and about 5 minutes later I hear Dale screaming shit like, "Get off of me you dumb motherfucker, and I'll whoop your ass, I swear to God," in his perfect hick accent. And so I run over to the sound of his voice and I see David, butt ass naked, beating the shit out of Dale. I yell out to David to stop, and he looks at me, snarls, and bull rushes me, but since I wasn't that drunk, I was able to avoid him, and he ran off into the woods. I got Dale up, took my shirt off, so he could stop his nose from bleeding, and asked him what happened. Apparently when Dale had walked up on David, he had been masturbating, and when Dale something, he just looked at him while still masturbating, said, "I have to do this," and tackled him, and started hitting him, until I came along.